Oh,
Okay. Well, first of all, I want to thank, and I'll thank them at the end if we get more people, Marie Lepine, who, with her team at Kairos, did this pro bono for free. She has an otter hound and she loves her otter hound, and we love Marie. And Gabrielle, who actually did work with her throughout the whole thing. And I'd also like to thank the Health Committee, Laura, Martina Calfo, Joe Ellen Gregory, Mark Poe, Sue Apluchek, Carmen Lang, Becky Van Houten for all their work on it. We did this survey over almost a year by the time we started planning and looking at what we wanted to ask and what we didn't want to ask. So let's just go through, and can you move to the second page?
can you see it now?
I'm still looking at the first page.
Okay, hold on.
Maybe, wait, maybe I can do that, but probably not, because slide it down. Or maybe if you go over to the left.
Hold on. It's being goofy on me.
Shame on you.
Okay, we're going to go back to the screen share.
Mhm.
Okay, down
There,
to number 2.
yeah. Okay, we can keep going. Um, so this was Stella, who is Marie's dog, and she just said she was delighted to do it. The objectives for the survey, and the print is fine, so I am going to read them, is to conduct a comprehensive survey to understand the current overall health status of otter hounds, identify primary and prevalent health issues and areas that need attention, and to equip the club with health information that will help us in preserving the breed in the future. So the methodology was, we asked as many owners who had dogs from 2010 onward to fill out the online survey. We had 129 people respond, and they responded on separately on 275 dogs. If we figure that there's about 900 dogs in the world, that's about a third of the population is represented here. So it's a pretty good sample for a survey. Okay. We can go on. Most of the otter hounds who filled out the survey were from the US. And they were born here and they live here. The second largest number was the UK and I think Germany. We can scroll down there because I'm not sure that's, yeah, it was the UK and then Canada. I always think of Canada and the USA as North America together. So we had a few more from the UK than Canada, and then a couple from Germany. The largest age group was those up to 4, followed by the 5 to 9-year-old group. Okay. We were lucky to have almost a 50-50 representation between males and females. So that was nice, but there are some places where the two are similar and some places where males and females separate in terms of their illnesses. And most of the otter hounds in the survey, 79% of them are still alive. Okay. Of those, a little less than half the dogs were spayed and neutered. Okay, you can see that 59% of the females and 45% of the males have been surgically altered. And the males, this is an interesting fact, were neutered earlier than the females were spayed by kind of a surprising amount. 65% of our males were neutered at 2 years or younger, whereas 52% of the females were spayed at 5 years or older. And I think that's something we need to maybe do some more discussion with, because generally today dogs are healthier if they aren't spayed before their growth plates, spayed or neutered before their growth plates close, which is 18 to 24 months. So some of the boys are being neutered pretty early. Okay. Of them, 60% of the dogs had their health clearances, most common being hip x-rays. So you can see there that the dark number is the boys, 60% to 40% who did not. And then you will see that most of those who were had the health clearances, most of them were the hips, followed by the GT test and followed by the hip x-rays. That's probably the result of the fact that the health committee only recommended making elbows mandatory about 3 years ago. So many of these dogs were born early, much earlier, and would have been x-rayed earlier before the recommendation to do the elbows. Okay, and more females got health clearances versus male dogs. Only half of the male dogs. This may be because the female dogs are the ones who are being bred. And it may indicate that we're using fewer males to more females. I'm speculating here. We don't know, but it's interesting that more females have their health clearances than boys. Okay. Death and the causes. This was something that made us notice. The average age of death is 9.39 years, with peaks at 9 to 10 years old. Hello there. Males deaths peak by 9 years old, while female deaths peak later at 10 years. So our females are living almost a year longer average than the boys. This has been a moment of, we were a little bit concerned about this because in our previous health surveys, probably 20 years ago, our dogs were living something like 10.8 years. It doesn't sound like much, but if we lose a year to a year and a half every 20 years, that could be serious. So our dogs are dying on average about a year earlier than they used to. Of those, most of our dogs die from cancer, which is not a surprise. 40% of our deaths are attributable to cancer. The next largest number is what we call other. It includes unusual things like accidents. It also includes, the largest other is old age, where people's dogs fail to thrive, can't get up, stop eating as they are older, and people do not necessarily do necropsies to find out the exact cause. So old age is the second largest after cancer. Interestingly enough, more males die of cancer than females, 48 to 36%. And 5 to 9 is the time when most deaths are attributable to cancer. Okay, so you can see that's a list of all dogs. And again, some of them we have 2 or 3 dogs, so it may not be worth worrying about. Other main causes of death, this is the old age and the single things, like there's some bloat and some other things. But if you notice, the numbers are one dog died of this, one dog died of that, one dog died of this. So I don't think those deaths or those causes of death are significant. And I know a lot of people worry about bloat, but we've only lost maybe 2 or 3 dogs in this survey to bloat. Whereas we've lost a lot more to cancer and old age. Okay. Okay, no male died of old age. Isn't that interesting? All the old age deaths were females, which again suggests our males are not living as long as our females. Okay. So cancer, 40% of our dogs died of cancer, cardiovascular disease, heart disease, 7%, old age, 7%, then musculoskeletal, endocrine, 5, respiratory, 4, urinary system, 4, seizures, 4, bloat, 4. And then we go down to 2% of, so I think our biggest worries are obviously, not surprising, heart and cancer. Okay. So we're going to look at the actual number, the age at onset, and how each dog was, or each illness was diagnosed. Okay. So the first one, again, we have a list of the health problems. This probably requires X-ray vision. But skin issues and lead the pack right there. That big hunk is skin. And then it goes down to, I think, respiratory. We will go through each of these individually, but you can see that by far most dogs, if they have any health problem at all, it's a skin and coat issue. Okay. So, cancer. Prevalence of cancer is similar among males and females. Okay, and you can see that 48% of males die of cancer, 38% of females. And the age range is not surprising. The older you get, the more the chance of contracting cancer increases. So the largest number is 10 years and more. Of the cancers, by far the leading cause is hemangiosarcoma, which is a cancer of the blood, which is the most common cancer in dogs. So that's not a surprise. Interestingly, on looking at the cancer, hemangio usually peaks at 9 years old. Now, I've lost 3 dogs to it, and all of them were older than that, but it is a disease that cannot be detected early. By the time it's found, it's usually on its way to being fatal. And if you look down, you can see that most cases were confirmed by a veterinarian and by ultrasound. So we asked, when we found a disease problem, who diagnosed it, the owner, the veterinarian, and how it was confirmed, either by ultrasound or lab, etc. Of hemangiosarcoma, splenitic hemangiosarcoma is the most common form of the cancer among otter hounds. Although, as you see, it can appear in the eye, the kidney, the everything, which means they don't know where it started, but it metastasized pretty quickly. Okay. So cancer is our biggest killer and our biggest problem. And now we list all the various kinds. I think of all the things that when you look at it, that is more impressive is we have very, very little, and this has been true of all our health surveys, very little osteosarcoma, which a lot of large dogs get. We are pretty lucky that that does not seem to happen to our dogs much. Okay. But after cancer, skin and coat problems are the most common, and they affect both about half of our dogs. And of the skin and health, so you can see that there's the percentage of males who get skin problems versus the percentage of females. Females seem to be nudging them out. And there it shows you that skin problems and coat problems increase with age, so that the most new cases are around 10. This would probably be, as we can see, sebaceous cysts increase with age. So the sebaceous cysts are the most common skin problem in otterhounds. This has been consistent from the very first health survey. And after that, lipomas, luckily, those are both usually benign. Okay, so as you could see, we're pretty strong on the fatty tumors and the sebaceous cysts. Usually 1 in 3 cases of sebaceous cyst manifest at 3 years of age. So you don't necessarily see it the first year or two, but starting at 3. And some dogs are unlucky and have tons of them. We've had dogs that when you pet them, it's like a washboard. Other dogs may get 1 or 2 in their entire lives. We're not sure what's the difference, if it's genetic, if it's environmental, but it is common to most otterhounds, and the frequency is just variable. And so we separated them from by cysts and lumps. And the lumps are lipomas, which are fatty tumors. And those usually you can, if they're diagnosed, those are benign tumors. So that's a good thing. Both of them are pretty benign. They're just messy and yucky. That's not a scientific term. Are there any other questions? We're going to come back to skin and coat problems. We'll get to digestive problems. But we thought, since there aren't that many of you, if you have a question, we can do it as we go along rather than waiting till the end and saying, I had a question, but I forgot it. No. So just, you can shout too. You don't have to group chat it. The next problem, and this does affect the breed, is a reproductive problem. And you can see that there are more problems affecting females than males. Now, I'm going to go back to the fact that males in otterhounds are neutered much earlier than females are spayed. Okay, females are generally not spayed till they're 5. A percentage of young males by the age of 2 have been neutered. So obviously they're not going to have reproductive problems because they don't have a reproductive system to have a problem in. Okay. Wider range of reproductive problems affect females than males. Most male problems were cryptorchidism. That is 1 or 2 testicles fail to descend from the scrotum, into the scrotum rather. And that usually we know by 6 to 10 months. Okay. And most of them are diagnosed by a veterinarian, although most owners notice it too, because they only have 1 testicle or they have none. Okay, so cryptorchidism refers to having either 1 or none. I know I've heard bilateral and unilateral, but it's just 1. Okay, female reproductive problems occur throughout the ages. And as you can see, even older girls have problems. Males are usually, since their major problem is cryptorchidism or sterility, they are usually diagnosed earlier. Okay. So what are the main problems with females? Well, you could see that, yeah, we can have problems at 7, all through their lifetime, whereas I say the males are much earlier. Okay. The major problem, reproductive problem in our breed in the females are A, reabsorbed pups, and B, pyometra. Reabsorbed pups is something we've all had to deal with, and we've had several cases recently where we've lost bunches, including whole litters, that were there in the first ultrasound and then weren't there at birth. So that's an issue. And you can see that the reabsorbed pups basically have to be diagnosed by veterinarian. They're usually found on ultrasound. I know sometimes an ultrasound can show puppies being reabsorbed or that they have just been reabsorbed. Pyometra is, of course, an infection, and that can be fatal. And you can see that pyometra is the second cause. Okay. So, before we leave reproductive cases, pyometra, of course, increases with age. Okay, so I think there's a correlation between the fact that females are spayed over the age of 5. Because after breeding, if your girl has had a litter or 2 and is approaching, say, 7, that's when often people will spay them to prevent a possible pyometra. So that is not a surprising fact, that pyometra strikes older girls. And here, eyes, ears, mouth, and all of those. Okay. They're more common among males, and they affect 1 in 5. And ear infections, again, this is not a surprise. Chronic ear infections are the most notable problem of the eye, ear. No, I guess they're eye, ears, nose, and throat people, I guess. And this is not a surprise. The peak of chronic ear infections are young. So I don't know if it's hormonal or what, but and I know in my experience, I'm fighting ear infections right now in my dogs. But usually if they make it to 4, they don't have ear infections afterwards. So it's just a fact. I don't know why, but there you can see that they seem to peak at 1 and at 3, and then maybe at 10 we have a little reappearance. But again, speaking as somebody who's older, as you get older, everything falls apart a little bit anyway. So chronic ear infections are the biggest problem. Nobody mentioned deafness because I don't think they listen anyway, so it's hard to tell if they're deaf. Okay, so what else do we have between eyes, ears? Oh, a lot of the mouth problems are simply off bites. So what we have are underbites, overbites, wry mouths, very few of those. But ear infections are key in that area. Okay. And they are diagnosed generally by a veterinarian. So that takes care of eye, ears. Digestive problems. Food allergy and sensitivity is the most prevalent type of digestive problem. And Joanne, you mentioned you were interested in this. There is dogs at age 5 to 9 are most affected by digestive problems. So it seems to be something that they develop as they get older. Okay. And they peak. And then, like everything else, if you survive your youth, you do pretty well. And most cases are discovered by owner with upset stomachs, not eating, loose stools. And dogs with chronic ear infections are more than twice as likely to be affected by digestive problems. So again, and ear infections and skin infections are related to digestive problems. 13% of our dogs have digestive problems. So if you're having a problem, it's not unheard of in otter hounds. And something we need to look at. Nervous system problems are pretty well equal between males and females. And again, 5 to 9 and over 10. So the main nervous system problem is epilepsy. And we had 19 cases out of 279 dogs represented had epilepsy. And yeah. So, there are a couple of other cases, but again, when you have two dogs that have something else, epilepsy seems to be the major problem. It peaks at 3 years and decreases with age. And there is a couple of nice diagrams that I would like to look at. And you can see that 2 to 3 is a big age of development where, and if your dog makes it to 10, probably will never have a seizure. But that's the typical age of epilepsy developing in dogs. Most of them are confirmed by a veterinarian who does the testing. And basically, the test for epilepsy is to eliminate any causes. So then so if your dog gets into poison, it will have seizures, possibly, but that would not be epilepsy. Idiopathic epilepsy is diagnosed by not having any cause for the seizures. Grand mal are the most common, unfortunately, and male and females tend to have about the same number. So it doesn't matter if you have a male or a female. Grand mals usually start by 3 and younger. Or, see, now this is an interesting one. There seems to be a surge in grand mals that starts around 7 to 9 years old again. That very well, and that is something our epilepsy study is going to be looking at, is the age. Generally, idiopathic epilepsy, 1 to 3 years. But we have this late developing epilepsy. Is that particular to otter hounds? Is it a different form of idiopathic? Because usually if you have a genetic problem, it won't wait 8 years to manifest itself. So this is an interesting thing that our current Canine Health Foundation study is going to start looking at. So, again, we see male and female. The girls are the pale color. It seems like the boys start maybe more at 2, girls start more at 3, but the difference is negligible.
Right.
And that's all we have. For those of you who came later, we can start all over and go back to the beginning, but let's open it to questions if you have any right now.
Hey, everyone. I don't know if you guys then. It's Katie here. I was the one running the screen share. There you go. All right. So anyone have any questions, comments? Anything new you learned?
I have a question, if I may.
Yeah, absolutely.
There were, I came late, I apologize. There were 279 dogs in the survey, is that correct?
I think it's 275. I'm sorry. It's
Okay.
270 something, 75, 78, 79. We can
I
look
can
at,
pull it back up from the beginning.
but that
Yeah, and,
probably is about a third of the otter hounds in the world today.
okay.
So
And of the 275, how many presented or had health issues?
we didn't ask how many had them. We asked only specific health issues. So if, for example, somebody filled out and I filled out for young dogs who had no problems, they would not have showed up in this at all. Does that make
If they
sense?
had no, yeah, if they had no issues.
Yeah, we weren't looking at how many dogs have health issues. We were looking at what are the health issues in the breed. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Yeah, and maybe we should have, but we were more interested in saying what's going on with them than,
Graham, did you the screen for methodology?
Yep. I was just trying to get the statistical feel of the sample size. Um, so I was trying to sort of understand the relevance of the results.
okay, the
That's what
number, there are numbers on these, they're very fine. So the percentage is the biggest thing we can see, but they actually, like 19 of the 275 dogs reported having epileptic seizures.
right.
So that means that, almost 250 some did not. So there are actual numbers on all of these, as well as a percentage. I think the point is you have to make it bigger to see the numbers.
Can you see it now?
Well, this one is just a percentage of the distribution by age.
Oh, so are we looking for epilepsy specifically?
Well, anything, there should be a number, like spade and neuter, they should have the number of dogs in fine print. Do you see the fine
Yeah,
print?
and 122. That would be
Well,
the sample size for that.
Yeah.
yeah, so that's only, so does that mean that 122 of the 275 reported that they spayed or neutered their dogs and the others didn't? Is that what that means?
65% of the dogs who were neutered at 2 years or under. The number of neutered we'd have to look at. Let's keep going down. I think the numbers are.
So
Okay.
here's this pie chart here. So here's our total 275. 55% in reported that their dogs were intact and 45% reported that they were
So,
spayed or neutered.
And of
right.
those, yeah,
The 122 is the 45%, I take it.
right.
Probably.
Yeah.
And of those, the interesting thing that I found was people are neutering their males at 2 or under, and they are spaying their females at 5 or over. The question I had, if you could go down to the next one, Katie, I think that's the next one. It shows that they are spaying or neutering dogs at 7 to 11 months old, which is very young, considering the studies now are saying that is a health issue. So we are getting dogs who are neutered quite early. Now, girls are generally spayed at 5 years or more, over half of them. So interesting. what we did not explore is, was there a behavioral component to neutering the boys?
Right.
Or what?
Right, because all we have here is numbers.
Numbers, yeah. We didn't ask why you did it, but I
And is
think,
there an,
yeah.
sorry,
No, go
Yep.
ahead.
Go ahead, Graham.
sorry. So is there a higher incidence of cancer, for example, in a male testicular cancer, if they're not neutered until later, or are cancers related to the when the animal is fixed?
Okay, now this is not in our survey, but one of the studies, because they have been spaying and neutering very early in shelters, etc., that they've done a study, and spayed neutered dogs have an increase in ACL tears. They have an increase, early neutered male dogs have an increase in prostate cancer, which surprised everyone. And I'll try to find some of the articles, but, and if you do early spay and neutering, the dogs tend to be taller and they don't have the bulk of their breed. So if you see a really spindly dog, that usually indicates, and because you're cutting off their hormones that they need to develop. It's
Right,
kind of like, would you do a hysterectomy on a 10-year-old? You know,
right,
they need the
sure.
hormones to mature physically, not just sexually, So, but so that's interesting that I didn't think we were neutering our dogs this young, you know, but we are.
Thank you.
Yeah, is that we do have numbers for the health thing on how many dogs had this and how many dogs had this. The proportion, early ones were just percentages. But
Yep, great.
anything else? And again, were you here for cancer as the largest cause of death? Followed by cardiovascular problems, which are heart and cancer. Same thing in humans, and
I apologize for that, guys. My internet pooped out on me.
I
Uh,
might pull it up.
do you?
Uh,
I can share it again.
okay.
I just I don't my computer. I was talking to you guys all about cancer for probably 2 minutes before I realized my internet pooped
I
out.
thought we just wanted to see your face.
Okay. Okay. Let's try this
Okay.
again. So we
Yeah,
were Graham, when my internet broke out, we were talking about types of cancer, and you were asking about testicular cancer specifically.
did we have any reported?
That's what I'm so similar among males and females.
There's
So
the numbers.
mammary,
See?
malignant lymphoma, stomach, oral cancer, mast cell, osteosarcoma, brain tumor, and others.
Yeah, who knows what others are, but
Others is eye, everything, kidney, sarcoma with metastatic spread, and cancer of soft tissues, bones, and probably lymph nodes.
yeah. So we did not get a lot of mention of, we did not get any testicular cancer.
Nope, none, not in this survey.
Yeah.
Um, and Eileen, some of that neutering, I mean, this is all speculation.
Yeah, we don't know.
Could be the cryptorganism.
Could
If
be, yeah,
if
because
if
we have,
veterinarians or whoever is suggesting if the testicles have not descended to neuter early.
right, for fear of testicular cancer.
Correct.
Yeah.
That's just again a speculation. All we have here are numbers.
Yeah. And again, when you look at some of the numbers, they're low, because we're a small breed. So 2% or 4% may be two dogs, so like we talk a lot about bloat, and we've never found bloat is a major problem in our health surveys. But people are always worried about bloat and talking about tacking down stomachs. And I'm certainly not going to tell you what to do or not to do, but it's just our dogs are not dying of bloat. They're not getting bloat very much, which is wonderful. And we don't have osteosarcoma, which a lot of large breeds do, is very rare enough for us. So that's good too.
Yeah. Is there anything else anyone would like to see again?
Will this PDF be available?
Yes, I believe so.
I think it's going to go on the website for sure. I think it should probably go in the files of Groups.io because that's a place where we keep file. We can.
Yeah.
Where else it will go is up to the
Yeah,
board.
it should be available to membership.
Yeah.
And what are you thinking about for next steps or extending the study? Is that possible?
Well, our first step is the epilepsy study, which we have begun with the Canine Health Foundation. I know it doesn't look like big problem, but if you look at, we have a larger percentage than most breeds of epilepsy. We have a small gene pool. We don't, and it's a dog with epilepsy has a problem its whole life, 10 years. If you have a dog that contracts cancer at 9 years and is healthy its whole life, I don't know what's better, but the point is, if you get a dog that's got epilepsy from the age of 1 or 2, that's a very trying health problem. So it is high in our breed, so we are looking at that. Is there something you would like us to look at? That's something we should take to the health committee then. I mean, if you're more interested in like digestion and allergy,
Yes.
okay.
And just the correlation between diet and any of these issues, but I think diet is more correlated with skin and ears and allergy, just general allergy.
I think skin and yeah, I have in the chat a food sensitivity test that Dr. Dodds does at Hemopet. So, it's one way to see what your dog may be sensitive to. It's not an allergy, it's a sensitivity test. So that may help you. I'm not pushing it. I'm not paid by Dr. Dodds. But I know I did a allergy test through my vet, and I've had people say they're not very reliable. And as it turned out, she had hemangiosarcoma. So the reason she was not well was not something else. I thought it was food allergies, but she was older. So, but
Can
there
I
are,
ask
yeah, go ahead.
another question? I understand that many dogs seize and often do it once in their lifetime between age 6 months and I think it's 2 years, if I'm not mistaken. So the seizures that are reported here, are these one-time events or are they repeat offense? I know if you have a grand mal, it could be repetitive, obviously, but I just wondered if some of them are single events.
No, Can you call up the epilepsy
Yep,
screen?
absolutely.
Because what they did is we asked not only what the problem was, but who diagnosed it and how it was diagnosed. So if we get to the epilepsy, most of these were diagnosed. Yeah, there's the grand mal. And do they have the diagnosis, or maybe it's further? Yeah, confirmed. Okay, epilepsy cases are confirmed by a veterinarian, and you can see that they did laboratory analysis, etc. Almost.
There's only 5 that were confirmed of the 29, if I'm reading that right.
This number, correct? Graham is what you're looking at, the
Yeah.
N5.
Mhm.
Well, it shows that 3 were confirmed for a lab analysis and 2 via blood test, so that's 5. And then that's 29 people who were diagnosing. So
But most of those were diagnosed by their veterinarian or a specialist, right? If you look on
Right,
the,
16 were diagnosed by a veterinarian and 10 by the owner.
but
But
also 3 more by specialists.
right,
Am I missing something? That doesn't mean isn't a one-time event, a 2-time event.
right. It could mean, I mean, this, again, speculation, right? Because these are just numbers that the wonderful people that do statistics gave us, is that it could be that those 5 that were reported over here, were the ones that had those kind of tests done,
I think
right?
also,
Yeah,
if I
I
could
guess
say, there is,
that is the not that a single event seizure or a twice event seizure isn't important, significant, or important. I'm just suggesting that is that skewing the results because many dogs, I understand, have single events.
um,
So I'm just
what we
wondering,
have,
if the
um,
dog had a seizure, they took a video and asked their vet, and the vet says, "Yeah, that's definitely a seizure they're having."
well, I think the difference is we didn't ask about seizures, we asked about epilepsy. And epilepsy is a diagnosis. So I think the blood test, from what I understand, and anybody can jump in, idiopathic epilepsy is diagnosed by the absence of a cause. So there is no test for it, but you can do all these tests like lab analysis, and they will come back negative. And that
Yeah,
tells you that there was no toxicity that might have caused a seizure. Do you see what I'm saying? So the right side, there isn't an actual test. You can't ultrasound and
if
see
it's
it.
genetic or idiopathic, it's without a cause.
Yeah.
So, so, so So is the diagnosis then that it's genetic, idiopathic, or does this mean that it's with a cause of or epilepsy does not have a? You're saying epilepsy. So these are all. Sorry, I came late. I apologize.
Oh, you're
Okay.
fine,
You're
Graham, you're
asking good
fine.
questions. I
So
think
so all of these cases are idiopathic. Is that what you're telling me?
idiopathic simply means no cause found.
Right, so
Okay.
that's what those numbers are,
In
I
other
believe.
words, I know dogs who have had seizures and their liver values were off the chart. Okay, so there's a cause there. Do you know what I mean? There's a liver problem that could have caused, or thyroid problems can cause them. But idiopathic does not mean genetic. It means no cause. Does that make sense?
So because we're
In,
talking,
in Canada, it means it's genetic. I can
Does it?
tell you. That's how they term it. In fact, they dropped idiopathic and went to genetic, in my experience, and
Oh, well.
is what they've said.
Oh, that's
Um,
interesting, 'cause Keros is a Canadian company in Montreal. But, so maybe she just used our terms. Well, again, it may be. I thought idiopathic simply meant we don't know what the cause is.
Right, my understanding is the reason, or I wouldn't say reason,
But
my
it's
guess
probably
would
genetic.
be that we don't have the genetic marker to be able to say exactly that it is a genetic issue, right? So we can eliminate everything, but unless you have that positive testing that says I can link this gene to this gene together, that creates seizure. We don't have that yet. So in otterhounds at least. So that's my guess is why we can't call it specifically a genetic.
Does that help at all, or Graham?
I was just trying to sort of understand the numbers.
Yeah,
We
yeah,
could go back and ask, because it's interesting, we had 19 or how many, reported in this? The study has a lot more people participating. So,
yeah. I think as far as seizure statistics, we'll get some different things from that
yeah,
upcoming study,
yeah,
or it's active study with UNC and the health foundation, the AKC Health Foundation.
yeah.
For sure.
And what they're looking at, I think, is the age where it manifests and what effect it has. So in other words, if you have your first seizure at 1 year, how long do those dogs live as opposed to a dog who might get it at 6? You see what I mean? So there's a lot of stuff that they can kind of do. And I don't know how much genetic stuff they're gonna come up with, because I know it's different in all breeds too. They're finding differences in different breeds. But
Yeah, we'll see, definitely. I know we do have people participating in the study, and
yeah,
we want people to continue to provide the university with what they can.
yeah. And we don't know how many and who it is because that is completely confidential. So, yeah. But I think, as I say, what surprised a lot of us was that our dogs are dying before they're 9.5 on average, and that's scary, especially the males at 9, where we've lost at least a year to a year and a half in the last 20-25 years. So,
Hmm.
you know,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
just, because I mean, there are some breeds who have a life expectancy of 6 years because of disease, and we've always had a pretty long one for a large breed, and now it's coming down. So, a concern.
Yeah. Any other questions, comments, concerns, suggestions? Anything that you have a direct question about or something like that, we can always follow up with the health committee and get back to the group. Yeah.
I'm going to take Joanne, you are very interested in digestion, allergies, and ear infection connections. So, I'll bring that to our next meeting. How's that? I'm gonna write that down as a matter of fact.